Um, Hi everyone, welcome to the grand finals of the Interschool debate under the motion of this house as a parent would teach their female children to adopt traditionally masculine personality traits, e.g. being a troll, assertive, ambitious, unemotional, independent, competitive, etc. I now invite the Prime Minister to begin the debate. Here.
All right. Am I audible and am I visible?
Yep, loud and clear.
All right, thank you. In which case, I'll reintroduce myself. I'm Rayan. I'm the Prime Minister for today's site Gov. Preferred pronouns he/they, verbal POIs. Please, I do not look at the chat at all. Please don't badger. Thanks. I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. To be a parent is to hope for the best of your child, but to be born with less opportunity than others for a binary trait you have no control over is a curse that should not be had. Now, the question in today's debate lies on whether to take the wheel and go against the wishes of those who wrong you, or to appeal to them and fight for your own autonomy as so, in which we choose the latter option. As side government today, and as Prime Minister, I'm going to be doing a few things in my speech. Firstly, I'm going to be going through our setup, which is our burden of proof, our characterization, which includes parents' masculine personality, female representation, and the status quo in which we live in, as well as the incentives of parents again. And then I'm going to go into our arguments, which has 2 layers of analysis with comparative integrated into it and impacts as well. So let's start immediately with our burden of proof, right? Firstly, we have 2 paths to victory. We're going to prove to you how female children get more opportunities and better lives on outside of the house. But even if you don't buy that, right, we're still going to prove to you how females as a whole get more representation anyway on outside of the house. The characterization are as follows. When it comes to parents, they want the best for their children, right? They wish for their success and happiness, and they would prioritize the child's best interest. They would raise them in an environment where they'll feel loved and cared for. And we think that these parents are generally going to be rational, and they're going to be supportive, right? Let's talk a bit about masculine personalities. Masculine personalities are normally perceived as better by society. They are favored and more appealing, right? And in the motion, it clarifies that adopting masculine. We want to clarify a bit that adopting masculine traits does not mean completely throwing away feminine traits. We think that any form of person will have a mix of both. Even the most masculine person has like a 90%, 10% of each, right? And so this kind of comes in the form of maybe empathy. It might come in collaboration. But we also think that women on the side opposition will have a little bit of the masculine traits on their side of the house. When it comes to female representation, it's defined by the wants and needs of females being represented in the media, and it has nothing to do with the existence of a feminine trait, which means that the female representation is not derivative of the feminine trait on your side or our side of the house. When it comes to status quo, women in society, especially children, don't really get to say in how they behave because pre-existing influences such like their parents, the media, their environment, etc., books, whatever, already exist, right? Which means that neither side gets agency or autonomy in how their child wants to act or behave in the get-go if environmental factors already exist on both sides of the house. Okay, moving on, let's just go into our arguments. So our analysis, 2 layers to that, right? Firstly, how women get better opportunities and more opportunities on the outside of the house. But secondly, how this aligns with the incentive of the parents. So masculine traits are appealing to society, right? Good leaders, they're responsible, they're symbols of authority. These are symbolisms that are deeply rooted in society and taught by many generations past. It's basically impossible to get rid of within 1 or 2 generations of fighting for rights. And the side opposition main problem here for the future of these children lie within this premise, right? Where traditionally feminine stereotypes are not appealing to society as a whole. The agency that is had for the child to act by themselves don't exist on either side of the house, therefore. And so for parents on our side who want their children to adopt traditionally more masculine types, and where social media, their surroundings, and pre-existing stereotypes of who is what already exists on opposition side, it's less impactful on our side for them to say that agency and autonomy is a really big principle for them. But it also goes to show that in the case where there is no autonomy, pushing your child to adopt a more appealing trait to society and more opportune characteristics are justified if neither side has a choice in what occurs. Therefore, by giving your child a trait that's more masculine, you appeal to society and have a more opportunity in fields of work that are traditionally dominated by men. The answer to this is more female representation in groups of work that are masculine and leadership position. And this proves 2 things, right? Firstly, females are as capable as men. But secondly, females are not necessarily as inept as society wants to think. The comparative of side op is as follows. A continual push of the unappealing feminine trait goes directly against the structure society functions in. This means side opposition is going to get a greater pushback within their case of feminism and also the opportunities that they want the children to have, right? And even in the sense of community of to be who you want to be, despite the lack of a choice during your childhood anyhow, it makes for a poor justification of autonomy or feminism as a whole. The point is that the lack of what can be done by women on their side as to our side, where the adopting of more feminine stereotypes that's likely to happen on their side does not appeal to society and are unable to prove so due to the intrinsic mechanisms of what these feminine traits are. The second layer is as follows, right? How this aligns with the incentive of parents. Parents wish for the best for their child in any case and scenario, right? This looks like pushing their child to be the best of their potential. It looks like supporting their child in times of turmoil and mental anguish. It means being a good parent in hopes of bringing the best children for their child. If feminine traits are traditionally terrible and is being put into light, parents are justified in getting their child to adopt more masculine traits in to succeed in the future, right? And it makes the best of the ability of a parent and their child's future, if so. Because once you're capable of giving the child a good future and giving them the most opportunities they can, it takes it's much more justified on our side of the house to make them adopt these masculine characteristics, right? Because sure, you're taking away some certain amount of opportunities that are exclusive to feminine traits, sure, but these are like mainly opportunities that are roles to fill, things like being a housewife, being a nurse, etc., compared to being a leader and things that break down the expectation of what women are. This ties back to the motion of incentive of the actor and proves the impacts that we bring in today's debate so far. The comparative on the side opposition is very simple. The opportunities that parents want to open to their child on our side do not exist on their side, as far as the intrinsic mechanism of the motion goes. Our impacts are quite simple to this as well. Firstly, the stakeholders on outside of the house, i.e. female children, they get more opportunity, right? And this is the most direct impact. And even though the children don't necessarily get the autonomy that someone might want to argue, we still think that the autonomy doesn't exist anyway on either side of the house, which means that the burden is up to opposition to prove how agency still exists for them and how feminine traits will still benefit them in the future, and still go to show that that parents are incentivized to not make them adopt masculine traits, right? Which means on our side, the impacts are as follows. Firstly, women actually get more opportunities on our side, and the female children on our side of the house get as a whole a better life in general, right? Because if they get a better, let's say they get a good leadership position, they're able to firstly prove that they're actually capable and get respect from other people in society, as opposed to what might happen on side opposition. But secondly, they also get a better life because since they're more respected, they're probably going to get better pay, they're probably going to get better role, etc., right? And so for all of these reasons, I'm very proud to propose today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for the fine speech. I invite Leader of All.
Just a minute. Am I audible and visible?
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right. I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Side proposition seems to think that females adopting traditionally masculine traits make them more appealing for the society. We simply reject that premise because we believe that in the vast majority of instances, females adopting the personality traits of men makes them seem too demanding, makes them seem too wrong, or at least say too masculine, let's say, in a way that's not appealing to most individuals or the society, right? This is because of the stereotypes that exist. The kind of stereotypes saying that women should be docile, women should be listening to men, and also a bunch of other stereotypes that dictates that men should be leading over women and women should be by the side of the man, right? And not somebody who should be competing on head with men. So we don't really see in terms of how them getting more opportunities, them having a better well-being and all those stuff that side proposition talked about. How did all of them exist? I've got absolutely no idea as of now, because we know that society hates individuals who try to pretend to be something else because it loves oppressing on individuals who are weak, right? So then, before I move on, what are the three questions that I'll be answering in my speech? First, that through banning first, that what teaching female children to adopt traditionally masculine traits look like. Second, why should you as a parent not do it? And third, what are the harms of it? But before I move on, let's get a bit of contextualization, right? What do we believe that teaching traditional masculine traits actually look like, right? We believe that it probably looks like not giving them traditionally feminine products to use, right? That is to say that stuff such as Barbie dolls and stuff that usually makes you feminine and makes you expressive, all those sort of things, we as a parent are likely to not provide it in order to develop masculine traits. But secondly, it's telling your children actively not to talk about their emotions and being emotionless and hiding their suffering, so that they become more masculine and seem stronger and more courageous in front of individuals or in front of the society and seem more masculine, right? We believe that is how it's likely going to happen. If so, then what is the thing that we propose on our side of the house? We propose that we'll let women and we'll let parents, as we as a parent will grow our child to embrace their feminism, feminine traits. And if this child ends up developing a masculine traits because of the societal issues that they face and a need to say be more masculine, then obviously they have a choice to do so. But then let's understand in terms of what is the incentive of the parent, right? We believe that the biggest incentive of the parent, and side proposition, the proposition as of now absolutely not talked about it, is the mental well-being of individuals even more than the success of an individual, right? I've already told you how women being more masculine means them seeming more demanding in job. That's not what employers want, right? If employers are hiring women, they probably want them to be more docile. In such instances, we believe that the parents' incentive is probably to focus on the mental well-being of the individual rather than on the success. But even if success were the thing, it doesn't work under their house, already proven. If so, then the way to judge this debate is on the which side of the house is the children happier. We have a few arguments for that. The first argument is that it gives your the first argument is that it gives your children more difficult time embracing yourself. What is the context of the premise of this argument? We believe that as a woman, you obviously face a bunch of common issues, right? You face things such as menstruation, you face things such as stigma around menstruation, right? And you face things such as a bunch of harassment, maybe in your workplace or maybe in public transport and whatnot, right? All these are experiences that are unique to women, and all of this exists because women are traditionally exploited more in society than men. If all of that is the case, then we believe that these experiences are likely to be applied regardless of whether or not you have masculine traits as a female or not, right? Say somebody is touching you inappropriately, does it really matter whether or not you seem masculine to them? Probably no, right? Because you are a female and female are inherently oppressed in society. And the reason why this argument is true is because you as a parent tell your child that you need to be strong and powerful at all times, that you need to be able to do all the things that you are doing. You need to be able to carry the burden of everything that you are doing, right? And you often have goals that are extremely ambitious and competitive as well, right? But because all of these inherent issues exist, because the discrimination exists in workplace as well, regardless of whether or not you have masculine traits as a female, in many instances, because of the patriarchal structure that we already have in society, because of all those reasons, it's inherently hard for women to reach higher positions of power. And we believe this is extremely crucial in this debate because at the point of time, women inherently have harder time accessing those higher positions of power, but yet you keep on saying you need to be more masculine, you need to be more competitive, you need to be able to compete, and you need to be able to achieve something that a man would. Then you are putting an unrealistic expectation on most instances on these women, even, and not acknowledging the fact that they as women inherently suffer a lot because just simply of the fact that they are a woman, right? But before I move on, any POI?
Hi. The stereotype of traditionally feminine woman is one who does not have high ambitions to begin with, as someone who is more submissive to the man. Who is the one with higher ambitions? Given this, how does your point still stand?
We believe that regardless of whether or not you seem feminine or not, because you are someone who seem to be masculine, right? Even say if you were masculine, under your side of the house, you're trying to say that who is likely to be more harassed, right? We believe that it is likely going to be symmetric on the both sides of the house. And maybe in some instances, it's likely going to be a bit more on our side of the house. However, the unique benefit that we give them is we validate their experience and tell them, no, you don't need to compete with men. You don't need to hide your suffering, and you don't need to be emotionless like a man. We will validate your suffering. We will listen to your issues. So we are not somebody who say will ignore your issues and let you suffer alone and be emotionless and not even express it, right? That's what happens under your side of the house with masculine traits. And we believe that is worth, because first of all, you are invalidating experiences. Secondly, you are telling them that their experiences that they are facing is something that they should ignore, right? That something that they should never show. However, this inherently is likely to cause issues because it puts a lot of social unacceptance in place as well, in terms of woman seeming like a man. And it also the second argument is that it also hinders the emotional interaction of women, right? The premise of this argument is there is nobody to validate and reaffirm the feminine issues such as harassment and etc that you face, right? As a feminine woman with masculine traits, you're likely to have male friends, you're likely to be around circles of men more than female, because similar people become friends, and very few women are actually traditionally masculine, right? And in all of those instances, we believe that the emotional interaction that you want to have as a woman, that you want to talk as a woman, you might want to say put makeup on or enjoy the things that you are doing as a woman, the uniqueness of being a woman, all those things actively exist. However, under side government, we believe that it is likely that these kind of emotional interactions will be invalidated. However, under side opposition, this is likely to be validated. Very, very proud to oppose.
Okay, thank you, Leader of Opposition, for that fine speech. Now I'd like to invite Deputy Prime Minister. Here.
May I request a few moments to set up my timer, please? Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Just checking, am I audible and visible right now?
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right. My pronouns are she, they, verbal POIs, please. I will not be looking at the chat, and please don't badge us. Thank you. Without further ado, I will be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Firstly, I'd like to start my speech with some rebuttals. Opposition claimed that females adopting masculine traits make them unappealing or seem demanding because of stereotypes on how females should behave. But societal norms evolve over time and perceptions of attractiveness are dynamic. So breaking away from these rigid stereotypes, like what we're doing right now, is benefiting everyone by promoting diversity, equality, and empowering individuals to be true to themselves, irrespective of current present gender norms. The premise of society loves oppression, according to opposition, isn't necessarily true. Oppressing those with a similar trait as you is innately hypocritical and strange and weird, because you're essentially oppressing a group of people that share your traits. You're essentially just oppressing people who behave the same way as you. Okay, furthermore, they also stated that parents would make their children hide emotions in order to seem more masculine, because however, we mentioned and we have put emphasis on our first speaker speech that they would still have feminine traits and not necessarily always act strong or tough. Furthermore, the stereotype of men being strong and tough and they don't feel emotions, they don't cry, that stereotype is being gradually broken. For example, like on the internet, more people are gradually raising awareness for the incorrect stereotype where men don't feel emotions. A good example is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. That's starting to surface on social media, and it's a really big first step to debunk the stereotype that men don't feel emotions, and therefore this type of situation would not happen on our side. Okay, they also stated that females are inherently oppressed and should not be expected to do or to achieve what men can achieve because they're unable to do so due to oppression of society. However, our side at least makes an attempt to change this by changing gender stereotypes and norms, and opposition does absolutely nothing to solve this problem that is exclusive to their side. Okay, they also, okay, so the parents and children's incentive for this is because at least we change the gender stereotypes, the children will have better future, better opportunities, and parents would want their child to have these better things for themselves because they raised them for nearly 2 decades. Okay, they also stated that there's no one to validate women's issues and harassment, but this is untrue because men have communities of mutual aid that work to validate each other to begin with. Opposition's issues is to focus on premises that are posited and unanalyzed. Men are, in fact, not robots and are capable of social interaction, albeit a much more robotic one. Even if we concede that, the issue of validation is solved whereby there's validation from others in their own field and community. The even greater concern is why these masculine women, quote unquote, being incapable of standing up for themselves if they're raised this way, if they do get the respect that we've proved on our side, they should have a semblance of social standing that allows them. Yes?
Our point is not that we don't teach our women to be ambitious. The core idea here is that men and women are inherently different, and it is important for us as parents to make sure that our children recognize those systems of oppression and differences.
We also never said that we wouldn't let the children recognize these symbols of oppression. What we're saying is if you adopt masculine traits, women are able to protect themselves better from this oppression. They are able to reject this societal norm that women should be oppressed, women should be docile. So by doing this, at least we're making an effort to give better opportunities to children. So now I'll go into my extension. On our side, we get more female representation. We are willing to trade off stereotypes that feminine personality traits are bad. For example, like being docile, being shy, etc., being quiet, for more female representation and better future for children. So how does female representation look like? Okay, women will contribute to a more diverse and well-rounded representation in various fields, which will lead to more perspectives, ideas, and problem-solving approaches, ultimately benefiting society as a whole. So a good example is having more women in STEM, such as the pharmaceutical area, where, for example, they can help develop better birth control pills with less side effects compared to the existing ones right now, and this leads to a huge betterment for women. So why is this important? This provides young girls with diverse role models in various fields, and when girls see successful women in leadership positions, they're more likely to aspire to achieve similar goals because they see other people doing it and think, oh, I can do this too. So positive role models can inspire confidence and ambition, helping young girls realize their full potential. Furthermore, it also gives children a better future, especially for young girls. There are going to be more opportunities in largely male-dominated fields and industries for women, and this will break down barriers and provide equal opportunities for women to excel in diverse roles, as stated in my first speaker speech. So examples are like construction, engineering, physics, etc. So what are the parents' incentives in this? Parents often want their children to grow up in a world where everyone has equal opportunities, regardless of gender. Advocating for more female representation contributes to a more equitable society where girls have the same chances as boys to pursue their interests, education, and careers without facing gender-based discrimination. Parents would want the best for their child and so will provide their child with necessary survival instincts, which are adopting masculine traits to combat this oppression. So why are both of these benefits exclusive to our side? It's because we advocate for female representation, and this aligns with progressive social change, and opposition doesn't actively encourage the adoption of masculine traits, which will decrease the opportunities later in life for young girls, and this goes against the direct incentives of parents, as explained in the first speaker's speech. By challenging and overcoming gender stereotypes, we create an environment where girls are free from limiting expectations based on traditional roles. So in our worst case, we implement in a way that prioritizes quantity over quality, and tokenism might prevail where women are included merely for the sake of meeting a numerical target without ensuring that they hold influential positions or have a genuine impact. The disappearance of feminine traits as an autonomous existence will also occur, but on opposition's best case, they will advocate for a more organic and merit-based approach, and individuals are evaluated solely on their capabilities and contributions. Why do our worst case still win? Because we contribute to breaking down initial barriers and challenging stereotypes. So the presence of women in leadership roles, even if not as impactful as intended, may inspire future generations and gradually pave the way for more substantial changes. opposition may inevitably perpetuate existing biases and structural barriers because in a society with deeply rooted gender inequalities, relying solely on meritocracy could maintain the status quo and portray the image that females are inadequate and can't be in more male-dominated industries, which go against the entire goal of female representation and therefore reduce opportunities for the child in the future, which is the parent's main incentive. Today, I'm proud to propose. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, DPM, for that fine speech. Now I invite the Deputy Leader of POP. Here.
Hi everyone, confirming if I'm audible and visible.
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right, thank you so much. So I would like POIs verbally, please. And starting in 3, 2, and 1. Here's what the first speaker of side proposition says at the top and at the end of their speech as a conclusion. The reason we should enforce masculine traits onto women is that society values masculine traits over feminine traits, and we should feed into those stereotypes so our children are able to have a better life. I'm going to do a few call-outs just to destroy the premise of their case, and show you why all of those derivative arguments do not really make sense once that's out of the way. But firstly, I would just extraneously like to call out the fact that they are the side that's feeding into the patriarchal or the masculine narrative that being feminine is something that is less valuable. Given this context, I don't really see how their accusations of we are the side that is reinforcing patriarchal narratives is something that is true. Because we think, if anything, embracing feminine traits and realizing that they have unique contributions to society, just like men do, is something that allows us to create a more equitable society. They need to justify their assertions a bit more. However, let's go through a key comparison on their argument before we go on to any of the debate. Firstly, they assume that in order for us to become after we force masculine traits onto our children, or our daughters to be more specific, they are going to be successful because society values masculine traits. I have an analogy for you here. We think that we on opposition think that this is equivalent to trying to make a rhino climb a tree and saying that if you're able to climb a tree, you're stronger than a monkey. But if you're not able to climb a tree, you're not stronger than the monkey. Because if obviously you're going to force women into masculine traits, obviously men are going to be better than women at that. The idea here is that yes, they're probably going to be better than other women, but the competition that they're going to face now is also going to be other men. So their comparative large benefit that they seem to claim that, oh, we're going to have better jobs, we're going to have more income, our daughters are going to be very, very successful, is something that is greatly minimized when you see that you're forcing them to go into a space where their competition is inherently going to be better than them. That is what first speaker was telling you. We're not saying women should not be ambitious. We're just saying that you should just not force them into circumstances where they're predetermined to be disadvantaged, because men inherently have values in that regard that are stronger. If society values masculinity, our goal should not be to feed into that masculinity. Our goal as a society should be to go to a world where we realize that that masculinity is not the only good thing. This is the point that side proposition is missing today. Therefore, I think by this point, due to biological and hormonal disadvantages that separate women from men, right, I think it's easy to see why there's an inherent physical, psychological, and social difference between men and women in many instances. So therefore, we think that the idea of the other side, that it is going to be a fair competition, it is going to be equal competition, is something that is not okay. What does bringing up children actually look like on our side of the house? Because the other side thinks that we're just going to teach our children to not do anything and become stay-at-home housewives. We think this is more likely to be like helping them identify what they're strong at, helping them identify the traits and the social activities or the employment or any sort of those skills that they're good at, then allowing them to prosper in those activities. If this is traditionally masculine and our daughters are traditionally predominantly masculine, we think we're ready to support that too. But we think that in most instances, this is not the case. And when we allow our children to grow up in these instances, we are more likely to maximize the output of success here, because we're not forcing them into a place where other people are inherently better at getting those traits. Therefore, we think that this is the context that this debate needs to go forward on. Before I go on to my argument, are there any questions on that?
The existence of a patriarchy only stands as long as there's a polarized comparative between the patriarchy of males and community of females on your side. How do you respond?
I do not think I have to respond to that because like even if you force women into like masculine traits, right? We think that that difference still exists, which is to say that the comparative benefit of tapping into we think that there's some professions that women are going to be better at that you just straight out ignored is something that is very, very great. The comparative benefit, once it is great, right? I don't have to show to you why like the polarity like is going to be reduced. I'm just showing to you that tapping into this is something that is a better alternative for women altogether. First argument then on how we trap our daughters into toxic masculine traits. The context to this is threefold. Firstly, we teach our daughters to embrace things like being strong and independent regardless of the circumstances. This probably looks like parents or mothers getting mothers have like promoting mothers to go back to work, like probably glorifying mothers to go back to work immediately after very soon after they give birth, probably independent mothers who take care of their children alone, instances like that where we like indoctrinate our daughters so they're independent and strong by traditional standards. Here is how I proved to you earlier that they're inherently different from men, and this is also crucial to this argument. They feel a unique burden of having to be as strong as the narratives for men. They're forced to be traditionally as strong as their men. Now, the problem here is that narrative that exists for men in order to control or mitigate that toxic masculinity uniquely doesn't exist for these women. Why? Because traditionally you're probably going to understand that men are not going to be good at handling things like emotions, right? To a great degree. But when you're a woman, you're forced masculine traits are forced onto you, then it's sort of a situation where you're forced onto a double burden, which is to say that you're supposed to be independent and you're supposed to act masculine like all of the other men, but then again you're also like expected by society to maintain everything that you'd already maintained in the past. So things like emotional awareness to a very, very great degree, right? We think that this unfairly places our children into a situation where they're unfairly expected to do a lot of different things. The illustration of this is when women become physically weak after bearing children, and society and like they have an inherent expectation of being as strong as they were earlier or being as strong as men. We think instances like this, even if society doesn't directly do this to them, we think that they themselves are going to put pressure onto them, which we think is a very, very bad thing. The clear mechanism to this is when parents expose daughters to such burdened circumstances, we actively contribute to things like their bad mental health, given the illustrations that I gave to you earlier. The conclusion to this argument is that since this directly harms our children's well-being, forcing masculine traits onto daughters is simply against a parent's incentives, because at that point, we are actively forcing burdens onto them that they're probably not going to be able to fulfill. Finally, I would like to make a final comparison between the two sides. Side proposition here comes and tells you that the only way in which women are going to be successful, or the only way we're going to be able to make them independent, is through forcing masculine stereotypes onto them, which is going to ensure that they're going to succeed in society. We would once again like to emphasize that it is more likely, rather, that they're going to be more successful when we go ahead and try to capitalize on things that they probably might naturally be good at, capitalize on things that does not force them into this idea of a patriarchy. Therefore, we do not think that forcing our children to be something that they're not, or forcing our children into double burdens is something that falls under the incentives as parents. We do not think we should force them to be masculine. Very proud to oppose.
Thank you, DLO, for that fine speech. Now I'd like to give it to Gulfwave. Here.
Okay, can you give me a moment to set up my timer?
No problem. Sure.
Okay. Okay, am I visible and audible?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Hello? Ah, I'm audible, right? Okay, yeah. Okay, so I prefer verbal POIs, and I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so first of all, I'll start my speech with giving off a few rebuttals to the opposition case, and then I'll move on to the main clash of today's debate. Okay, so for my first rebuttal, these feminine traits can allow like females to move on into higher positions in society rather than like if they had the more masculine traits. Now, this contradicts their previous speaker's statement about females being oppressed and not being able to rise up in society. Now, secondly, for my second row, they said that forcing women to like have these toxic masculine traits means that they're going to be competing against men instead of females, and then these men, because they like are men and they already have these masculine traits anyways, they're going to be better than these females in these fields. In response to this, let's look at two perspectives, okay? So first of all, manual. Manual, it means something like athleticism. It means that you actively use your like body, as in it depends on how physically fit you are, etc. So in terms of this, women will still be competing against other women in the women category. So they're not going to be competing against men, and having these masculine traits will let them climb up higher than their peers. So even if males are a lot stronger, having these masculine traits allows them to climb a lot higher in like the female category that they're going to be competing in anyways. So you're going to be competing against other females, but not biological males. So having this different like perspective, these different traits allows you to be better suited for like this competition. And yeah, and even if we concede that like they're gonna, for example, be competing against like other men, adopting traditionally masculine traits, for example, resilience and competitiveness in their own corporate ladder. So even if like you do compete with males, you're at least drawing the gap closer, which means you have a better opportunity than like over other females, and potentially even over like other males who are worse. Yeah, and the second perspective is in mentally. So as in like you don't actively need to be physically fit to like compete. So in this case, opposition insinuates that males are inherently better than females, which is largely untrue. So an example we can give is like, for example, the field of physics. The men are stronger in some fields statement doesn't apply to the mental fields because it doesn't like their athleticism, how fit they are, etc. Even if they are biologically stronger, it doesn't apply because it doesn't matter how strong they are if we're talking about something like education, academics, STEM, etc. So in these fields, women can be as smart as men, as skillful as men, and even though men can be better, women can also be better, and like IQ doesn't. So having these masculine traits in these fields will help you because, like, for example, with the earlier statements of like resilience, competitiveness, they encourage you to do better than others. They encourage you to be better, and thus you will have, and even if like, so while psychological differences do exist, we think that with effort, these masculine traits, and like with effort and the addition of having and possessing these masculine traits, these psychological differences can be surpassed. So you're able to be as good as men in this like these fields,
Hello.
of whether or not
Um,
like they're slightly smarter than you when they're born. See it that women are still unable to get things that at least with intrinsically different.
hello.
This one POI.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, timer pause at 4. I think, hi, is it possible for you to turn off your camera? So we pause the timer at 4. The last thing, we pause the timer at 4. But I think there's a slight problem with your internet connection. Is it possible for you to turn off your camera?
Okay. Okay, I will
Yeah.
be continuing my speech in. Oh yeah. Okay. So I will continue my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay. So yeah. Now for another like claim that opposition made is that I forgot. Okay, yeah. For another claim the opposition made is that like promoting like too many toxic masculinity traits will like if we keep encouraging them to be like independent and strong, then it'll force too much of a burden on them. For example, forcing them to work after pregnancy. Now I think this example of forcing women to work after pregnancy doesn't really apply because men do not experience pregnancy, and like if a man went through, like, for example, a car accident, or like his wife died or something, he would still take a break, like a stressful situation, or when he has a very big physical toll on
POI?
him, right? And even, yes.
The reason that does not work is that there is societal coercion in place that in many instances forces women to have children. Men do not have societal coercion to get into car accidents.
Okay, yeah, even if we concede that, like, women, like, they are coerced into having children, so many women will still have children. And even in that case, like, as our previous speaker has already stated, there are still support networks, like, for example, for men, and there's like a developing narrative that men have, like, their, like, problems, as in they have their stresses too, and that these stresses should be addressed. So, like, they don't need to always be strong, they don't need to always, like, take on all the burden by themselves, right? So even if we concede these traits of, like, strong and independency on, like, women, make them, like, try to shut other people out, this is already changing, and we believe that this won't have much of an effect on, like, the rest of the debate. Okay, so I'm gonna move into the main clash of this debate. Now, I believe the main clash of this debate is which side better solves the oppression and, like, better provides female representation, right? Because, like, parents have the incentive to ensure that their female children, their daughters, aren't going to go into an oppressed society, that they're going to succeed when they grow up, and that they have representation. Okay, so for this clash, I believe that we win because on our side, as we've already explained, females are, because of these masculine traits and because of, like, this negative stereotype of masculine traits are better than feminine traits, they're going to be more successful if they do indeed possess these masculine traits, which allows them to go into higher positions of leadership and benefit from that. With opposition's case, they keep trying to state that there will be, like, many burdens for females, right? But these these burdens are not they are negated by the fact that there is, like, an increasingly supportive network that, like, helps, like, both men and women go through, like, stressful issues, etc. And also that because by having, like, these traits, even if they're taking more of a burden, they're still able to succeed in the end. At least they get to change these stereotypes. At least they get to get into these high positions of leadership, which will encourage more people, which will motivate more young females, more young female adults, and this will, in the end, slowly but surely, I believe we win this debate. Thank you. That's why I'm proud to propose.
Okay, thank you, Gavwit, for the fine speech. Now I'd like to invite Hopwith. Here.
I'll be starting my speech in I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, and 1. Panel, there's a clear distinction to be made in this debate. Side proposition thinks that in the world, the only way to be successful is to have masculine traits. This premise that they believe and contest their entire arguments is simply untrue. We do not think that every woman who are in leadership positions or who have achieved something in life today are necessarily masculine. Understand that teaching this female child the need to work hard or the need to be resilient is not exclusive to only their side. We think these are the traits that we can still push up on this female child, and therefore being masculine and overly competitive is not what is required in most industries or most fields today to become the most successful person. Therefore, their entire premise on the fact that more female representation happens, more people go into STEM, and this particular child becomes someone so successful is simply untrue, because not every successful woman or the need to be successful does not come from the fact that you have to be masculine or you have masculine traits, right? Firstly, a clarification to be made on side proposition is that they push the idea that just because you teach your child masculine traits, you're going to change the society. Understand how just because you give your child these particular traits, the society probably remains the same, and you're unable to change the society as a whole and get impacts like diversity or more female representation on your side, right? So understand that these impacts cannot be drawn, and incentive analysis of the parent is clearly missing on side proposition. So what does side opposition do in this debate? Firstly, we tell you that society is inherently oppressive to women, right? We do not think that today, if a woman starts having masculine traits, society values that woman so much. We tell you that society is oppressive and does not want to see a lot of women succeed, whether this be in workplaces or whether this be in relationships, right? A lot of the instances, there's always domination of the male character. So we think just because they're able to adopt this character does not mean that males will buy into it and start acting more friendly or start acting so nice to them in a way that oppression changes on a great scale, right? We think that is wrong. They also talk about how society is changing, but we still do not think that is enough to prove that how people or the women with masculine traits will simply be accepted so well in the society. We rather tell you that a lot of opinions from the society is likely to make this child feel bad about this masculine trait because they feel ostracized as a whole. And as a parent, you're also likely to be seen as someone who did not raise your female child the way she's supposed to be because stereotypes exist in the world. You're the one who's likely to be questioned on how you raised your children and why that female kid is particularly so different from everyone else in the world and why she does not fit in the stereotypes, right? We also tell you that a lot of expectations to have feminine traits also are put upon by society upon you, right? The response side proposition gives us is it will probably be 90% or 10% and a few feminine traits will still exist, right? We do not understand that when you're pushing the idea of you should be emotionless, you should be strong, you should be able to hide your emotions, you're necessarily garnering these feminine unique traits, right? We think that on side proposition, when you raise a child from the level where you don't give them feminine toys and where you don't allow them to associate with other feminine children because they probably want to play with other sorts of toys, these feminine traits and these unique women traits are not likely to develop in a level that she will be able to navigate through the oppression of the society today, right? So what side opposition does is tells you that men and women are different in society. They have different sorts of roles and responsibility, and note they have different sorts of unique traits, right? So what we do on our side is we allow our female child to navigate their way through this oppressive society or through the structure of the society, allowing them to become what they want. If they want to capitalize on their feminine traits, they can still be successful, right? We do not necessarily think being successful is just being masculine. We think there are a lot of instances where women have become successful because they were what, makeup artists or things like that. We think such unique women traits are still something that women can value, right? So overall, what we tell you is that when you push the idea of being masculine to a female child, as a parent, what you're doing is you're adding an extra burden because you understand that in the society we live in, men are inherently going to be better at these traits and women have other unique traits that they're better at, right? But when you're pushing them to become like them and when you're pushing them to have such traits like these males who with proper mechanism, my second speaker has already told you in terms of biological instances or mental, physical, social instances, they're going to be better and above a higher pedestal. It becomes difficult as a parent to put this burden upon my child, right? So overall, what side opposition solves is that as a parent, when your female child is going to enter this oppressive society, you are the safe space that your child needs to have. You are that particular person that your child needs to be able to share their emotions to, right? We do not see how, as a parent, we would rather value a child being successful and hiding all sorts of emotions they have felt over the years from oppression, from the society, stereotyping from the society. Rather, we value a world where a parent is able to at least have their children talk to them about their problems, talk to them about their emotions, right? Side proposition thinks, no, men will also talk about their emotions and things like such, but understand how these traits on men are pushed in a way that most men choose not to talk about their emotions, even in like most like sad instances or things like such, right? We think it gets embedded in such a way that this female simply does not get the chance to bring other feminine traits and still have emotions as such. And we think emotion is what is able to win us this debate. The fact that as a parent, I would want my children to share their problems with me so I can help them navigate the world better, and so that they can have a better mental health compared to that often side proposition, where simply what happens is because you have stereotyping from people around you, because maybe sometimes you feel that even your female peers are not so much like you and they do not feel some sort of relationship to you, and you're not able to embrace your unique female traits because you maybe have association with other male groups or things like such. And because such conversations don't happen on a level they should, because you cannot simply convince, okay, men also have very insightful conversations. We think these unique female traits are something that this female can only embrace if she's able to feel that her traits are unique to her and unique to the world, and using these traits she can achieve something in society. And we think that is the side that side opposition pushes, whereas what happens on side proposition is, as a parent, I get ostracized for raising my female kid like this, and I do not solve the problem of the world. Understand how side proposition thinks just because I make my child, this female child, very strong means that the entire world will become nice and role models and such. We think in an actor motion, you have to analyze as to why this parent's incentive lies greater in this kid. And we tell you that's in making the mental health of the child better, creating a safer space, and thirdly, telling them that you can be successful in the unique traits you have, and masculinity is not something that leads you to success. This is a very wrong premise that side proposition pushed, and this is why all their arguments fall short and they lose this debate. Vote opposition.
Thank you, Outlook, for that fine speech. Now I'd like to invite Top reply. Here.
Hello, am I audible? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, I think you're audible.
All right. All right. Starting my speech in 3, 2, and 1. I'm going to make this reply speech extremely easy to follow. We're going to answer 4 main questions. Firstly, who are daughters and what are our responsibilities to these children as parents? Second, what are we doing to them by forcing masculine traits onto them? Third, why is it a totally viable option for women to be feminine and succeed, and consequently which side better allows women to embrace themselves? Fourth, why do opposition's mechanism in context of all of this not work? First question then, on who are daughters and how we are unique people that are responsible for the well-being of these daughters. These are children who by instance are brought into a society where they're good at certain things and they're not good at certain things, which is to say that biologically they have been advantaged to do certain things, but they've also been disadvantaged to do some other things. Here, when we're forcing masculine traits onto them, and this is basically answering the second question, what we're doing is we're forcing them by the context of the info slide to be assertive, unemotional, independent, and other things as such. What does OP do here? OP asserts that this is what society values, and women doing this is going to lead to better outcomes. They say, yes, we agree that women are going to be better at some jobs, but we think that when women are going to be masculine, they're going to gain a lot of good in society. They're going to be able to reach the top ladders of the corporate world. They're going to be better at athletics. Now, the reason it doesn't work is because there's a logical gap in between where they do not address the different problems that women face and the different disadvantages that come when you look at those problems. For example, a better example, rather than just taking athletics, which is probably just a very, very isolated example in which there is gender segregated competition, right? This is like very cherry picked. We think that in most instances, you have to compete with other men as well. We think that then, in these instances, a better analogy would probably be things like manual labor. Why is a woman, comparatively, going to be less traditionally productive in these instances? Probably because during periods like menstruation, women are probably going to have less physical strength to do things. Men inherently do not have this. This makes men inherently better at these things. Now, what Prop says is that if we're able to force our children to gain a certain attitude, even if they face these problems, they're going to be able to overpower through them. What we say is that that is the entirely wrong way to approach this debate, and that is not how they are going to excel. We think, like my third speaker said, there are certain fields and certain women who are succeeding in a lot of different fields without being overtly assertive, without being overtly aggressive, or all of those inherent masculine needs. In order for them to win with the line of argumentation that they pursued in this debate, they needed to prove to us why these traits are inherent to you becoming successful. Their only mechanism is society values this. I think we've shown to you why if we as parents are able to teach children that there's unique skill sets that they can tap into, there's an equal and probably greater likelihood of them being successful and them being able to pursue things in life. So if you get this debate to be about on which side we're able to better fulfill our children's needs and wants and are able to derive gratification from that as parents, our side clearly takes that clash. But I would like to point out more flaws with their mechanism. Because here they say, oh, but they say that women are oppressed, but they also say that women can do certain things. Our context here is that women are historically oppressed, but we agree that women are historically oppressed, but the mechanism that their side chooses to overcome this oppression just feeds into this patriarchy. We say that in order for us to overcome this oppression, we need to be able to tap into the unique skill sets, and we need to be able to show the contribution that we have to the economy, probably not by feeding into things that are going to be difficult for us. Therefore, their mechanisms of some women are good at physics as well, though, really come to bite them back. Because this shows you that women do not need to be masculine to succeed in many different fields. Therefore, because their side has a major mechanistic flaw and doesn't at no point really proves to us the link between being masculine and being successful, we think that we win this debate. Vote opposition.
Thank you all reply for that fine speech. Gov reply. Now I invite Gov reply to wrap up the debate. Here.
Mic check, video check. Am I audible and am I visible?
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right, thanks. In that case, no need for introductions anymore. I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Side opposition has come up with a wonderfully nuanced case today, right? And an inclusion of the difference between men and women. We thank the opposition for this. But however, what we don't thank the opposition for, which is their case, the issue of their case lies in the questionable mechanism in which they clash with our main impacts regarding representation and the welfare of children. We say, and we've proven throughout all 3 speakers, I'm quite certain, that desperate times call for desperate measures. And the enforcing of differences that exist structurally when one side is terribly disadvantaged towards the other seems like a very, very counterintuitive way to sink a ship. Right. Let's talk a bit about the best case and worst case scenario of this debate, right? So in our I'll be doing this in a very systematic way. I'll be doing +1 for any positive impacts, and I'll be doing -1 for any negative impacts counted on the hand. So let's talk a bit about the best case, worst case of this debate. In our worst case, so -1. I am at -1. Women are put in a burden that they shouldn't be, and 2, they are destined to fill, right? They're systematically oppressed. That is to say, so that's 2 negative points off the bat. But let's look at what's good about our side, even within the worst case, right? We still get more statements and more proof on our side of the house why we're able to at least start breaking the barriers of this stereotype, right? And this means that at the end of the day, we still prove how this aligns with the incentive of the parent. The third thing, and the most important thing, right, is that parents are able to justify to themselves the best possible scenario for their child, which is to adopt this masculine trait, as we stated throughout the 2 substantial speakers. Let's look now at the best case scenario for side opposition. Firstly, they positive, by the way, they have a push for more feminine traits being more effective. And secondly, women are still able to be who they want to be. Thirdly, they also get better bonds with their parents through the bettering of their child's mental health, right? But let's look at the cons now, right? The trade-offs that have to be taken on either side. The downs here are the polarization of the 2 sides in society that we've already proven probably affect the patriarchy and its view on the world more than anything else. The second thing that goes to harm their case is forcing women to be the stereotypical roles that they fit in through the already pre-existing environment and social medias and whatnot that they already live in, right? But thirdly, that manifests in their case as a harm is the less representation of women on their side of the house that's intrinsic to the case, insofar as to say that our women on our side are able to at least have that attempt and at least be able to bring to light the polarizations or like the differences that are intrinsic to men and women that exist and are kind of like being ignored right now and are probably the reason why women are oppressed in the first place, right? But notice how weighing the impacts of our worst case lead to a positive one pro-con comparative, but side opposition's best case scenario leads to a net zero um a net zero comparative case, right? And this goes to show that even through the best case, worst case, our comparative of and our weighing of the impacts is still way out towards their side of the house, and even like even without the weighing of which is more important, right? Which our whip has already done. Um, I think to say the least, this justifies why side government should win, insofar as to say that our side has better representation for women, even through the rebuttals that's been made, and our side still has a justified way for parents to at least feel justified in how they treat and how they teach their children. And so with that, I'm very proud to end this debate and I'm very proud to propose. Thank you very much.
All right, that wraps up the debate. I thank both houses for wonderful speeches. I'd like to invite both houses across the floor and virtually shake hands.